what's with the flamingo, Janey?
Good morning. This was one of Reeta's provings, one of her many bird remedy provings, and I've had these candle holders for years, but I like to light a candle just to open the space when we meet online like this. And I had forgotten I had these because I had them packed away when I packed up the Emporium, and I found them the other day, so I've been using them again.
That is adorable.
Are you going to light that now?
Yes.
Yes.
Welcome us all into the space, and because we haven't seen each other since Bali, and just to share the sisterhood into anybody who's watching out there, I guess to bring them in as well, and hope that they feel this amazing energy that we've created between ourselves through this sacred sisterhood, and our love of homeopathy and our love of bird remedies, of course, as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And for any of the homies listening, welcome back to Rebel's episode. You might have to watch on Rumble and click on Homeopathy Hangout to watch the video. Otherwise, just hang out with us on the audio. We can just hang out in your ear holes, wherever you are, in the car, walking, cooking.
Oh, welcome.
And I just actually lit some Palo Santo over there as well on my table.
So somebody gave me myrrh, and I had the myrrh resin, and I put it on a little bit of charcoal and lit it in the house, but it really does not smell good. Is it supposed to not smell good, or did I do it wrong?
No, it's a really strong scent.
Yeah.
It's a really strong scent. So actually, if you put the resin, if you put a little bit too much on the charcoal, then sometimes it can be really overpowering. It's one of the most sacred oils, Eugenie, you know. It's what when Jesus was born, the 3 wise men that came from the east, one of the gifts they brought was myrrh. So it's really high vibrational. It opens up your third eye and your crown chakra. So sometimes when you use myrrh, it's like, it can shock you a little bit because it's so strong, not just the scent, but also the actual energy that it holds. So start maybe with a smaller piece. Yeah.
Try frankincense. Frankincense is so much nicer on a charcoal. All the Orthodox churches smell of. It's easier. That was the other one that was
beautiful.
brought.
Yeah.
It really does open up the third eye, and I have it on now. I have it on before I do anything that I, just to feel a little special. Actually, most days I put it on. But yeah, it is quite it's quite powerful, actually.
It's powerful. Yeah. You should read the remedy on it as well. I think there's some really interesting stuff on the remedy of myrrh as well. When I do my goddess massage, the blend that I use for the goddess massage has myrrh in it. And it is particularly because with that massage, I'm helping women to become reacquainted with their divine feminine selves, to really help them access their intuition and their instincts. So it's in that blend.
Beautiful.
And frankincense as well. It's interesting, Greta, you mentioned about the Orthodox churches. I grew up in an Orthodox family in terms of Orthodox, and that smell still takes me, every time I step into an Orthodox church, I just feel so much joy. But it's so cleansing. It creates such an amazing, clear, protective space. And I actually find it, I don't know any of your experiences, but I find it even more cleansing than sage, because usually we burn sage, but I find when I work with frankincense, it's just a deeper level of cleansing.
Back in Ethiopia, it's also an Orthodox. So they have a coffee ceremony where they have the incense of frankincense, and then you drink coffee and eat popcorn. So it brings me back to my childhood. And Sarah, I also put it every morning to my thymus and over here. And frankincense is said to be the surgeon's knife. If you put a little bit of frankincense oil on your face in the mornings and, in the evenings, you don't get wrinkles. It's really good for beauty care. You can just spray it. But I mean, it's a multi.
Wow.
Amazing. Surgeon's knife. Yeah. It's also a sterilizing property to it, hasn't it? Yeah. That's, I think, because they used to use it in the church. They carry those, I'm not sure what the name of them are, but they swing them back and forth when they walk down the actual middle of the church. They use it here, actually, in the Catholic churches as well, in Ireland.
They do here too. They do in the big cathedrals here too.
It's adorable, the smell.
Yeah, one of my favorites was sandalwood.
This incense is from the Amma ashram in India. Do you know this incense? It's got rose and sandalwood.
Beautiful.
Yes.
I just got a little bit. This has been like in my grief journey, when I want to feel fine, it's the frankincense and this incense that has helped me and my children along the way. It's amazing how smells can just take you to places and how they can heal, and so beautiful.
100%.
Yes.
I can't believe it was, what, 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, we were all together in Bali in person. And we finally, across our 5 time zones, but with daylight saving in between as well, for any listeners, let me tell you, the 5 of us being here together is no small feat, because we all have busy practices and busy lives and busy families and 5 different time zones. So Sarah, what time is it with you? It's like 8 p.m.
8 o'clock, just after 8
And
at night.
Reeta and Danica, it's like 10 a.m. for you and 12 for
12 in
Reeta.
Finland.
Yeah.
Is it yours?
At 4 p.m.
It's the
5
same.
p.m. here.
It's the same for Danica and I are on the same timeline.
So I wonder who would like to start us off with just giving a little rundown about Bali, maybe. I think that might be a nice place to start. I mean, we've got so many things that we need to talk about, but I wonder if maybe Reeta or Janey, do you, either of you two want to start us off with a cacao ceremony, and Danica, the family constellation, and Sarah, if you want to just give whatever beautiful insights you have.
I can start. So I think the way that things unfolded for Reeta and I to host the opening ceremony, that was what Eugenie had asked us to do. And I have been journeying for quite a few years now with Cacao, and Eugenie had noticed that I was a facilitator. And also I hold women's circles here in Ireland based on the Celtic wheel. So they're every 6 weeks, and we weave the magic of the holy iris trees and the goddesses as our kind of medicine within those circles. And now and again we'd use cacao as well. And I take it daily because I'm perimenopausal, so it's a real deep healer to navigate any symptoms you get in the perimenopausal stage, because it's so rich in magnesium and it taps into all our endocrine system, and it has loads of dopamine and the neurotransmitters that we need. That's why I started working with it. Declan Hammond gave me my first block of cacao. It's a really nice full circle journey. And when we did the opening ceremony, when you told me how many people were there, I was like, okay, I need a wing woman here, and said to Reeta, how about we do this together? And it was a no-brainer. So we came together, and we wanted the opening ceremony to be really encompassing and to create a space that was going to hold the entire conference, and that everybody felt really welcome and that we're all equal. And that's the power of the circle. When you stand in a circle, nobody's above you, nobody's beneath you. Everybody is on an equal playing field, and we all have our own magic, medicine, and wisdom within us. So that was so important for us, and to be outside under the most amazing banyan tree and to work in a way that was sacred. And I think Eugenie and Sarah, you and Ren and Marcus, your idea to unleash homeopathy and to future-proof it, also from our perspective, was to actually really bring the sacred into it, because we're working with these amazing medicines, we're working with amazing people, and everybody's story is really important. So I think, homeopathy has to move this way, that it becomes ceremonial and that you create a space that people can land into. So that was so important with the opening ceremony, that we start as we mean to go on, and that we show everybody what's possible, and to really help them see how simple it can be and how deep you can go by honoring the ancestors, the land, the custodians of the land that you're on, the elements, the directions, and each person in that circle and what they bring there. The cacao itself was from Bali, from Zero, and comes from this beautiful family. And it's not certified organic, but it is organic. It costs a lot of money to get the certification. And Reeta and I had decided to blend it with cinnamon and coconut cream. And I'll let Reeta talk about the coconuts, because it was all very thought out. We wanted it to really help everybody also embody the energy of Bali, and everybody got the opportunity to call themselves present, to set their intentions, and then take the cacao, receive the medicine of Mama Cacao, and then we brought them on this really magical journey, drum journey, shamanic journey into the underworld to meet Mother Cacao and for everyone to receive a gift. And from what everyone told Reeta and I, it sounded just like people had these amazing spiritual experiences. There was deep healings, realizations, people were crying, and
Some
just
people were
having
crying
that.
a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, all of us were crying. There's a real spontaneous energy. When you do the drumming, it brings you into a theta state. And this allows you to come out of your rational mind and just be in the moment and receive messages that you might not normally receive. So it was just incredible. The weather was perfect. Everybody just came together in this really wholesome way. I don't think anybody of us really anticipated how much magic was actually going to come from the opening ceremony, and it really did carry and hold us through the whole conference. And it was like everybody was just so present and so open, heart open. We really wanted people to come with open hearts and listen with the ears of their heart. And I think Reeta and I was just on such a high afterwards. It was such a privilege to hold that space and to open the conference, and to bring both our medicine to the conference. And then, of course, with the closing ceremony, Eugenie hadn't said anything about it, and we were chatting one day and I was like, what's happening?
Yeah, we didn't even think about that. I was so grateful that you said something. The whole committee, we were all like, oh yeah, we totally didn't think about that. How do we close this off? So thank you to you for bringing that up. Yeah,
it was like, I think I kind of assumed someone else was doing it. And me and Reeta were talking and she said, we need to close it. It's going to be so powerful. We have to close that portal. And one of the things that we did in the closing ceremony was really wanted everybody to be able to potentize each other and to share their dynamic, vital force within the circle. So we all sung our names together 3 times. And that was amazing, because when you sing your name, you become the drum. You're releasing your own essence into the circle, and everybody gets to receive your medicine that way. So that was really gorgeous. And just, I think for me, my takeaway from it all was just how incredibly unconditional love, that it was just amazing how much love was at the conference and just the connections that were made. There was so much learning going on, so much sharing. That, I think, for me was my takeaway, was that everybody was just so open and shared from their hearts, and it was just beautiful. I've written pages and pages about it.
I also want to, because we obviously, Eugenie, Marcus and Ren and I had discussed that you guys would do this, but I don't think any of us had any idea of how powerful and defining of the whole conference that this opening ceremony that you guys held was going to be. I feel like it unified everybody. It opened everyone's hearts. Everyone was vibrating at the same frequency after that. It was, seriously, I'm even getting shivers now when I'm talking about it, because it was just so incredible and just beyond what we could have even imagined it to be. It was just next level.
Yeah. It was so humbling. Just a huge takeaway, and I've held a lot of circles, but I've never held a circle for like 70, 80 people. So it was really stepping up, and it was really empowering and humbling and just beautiful. Thank you so much to the 4 of you. You know how much we love you all, and just felt so blessed to be there with everyone. I'd love to invite Reeta to talk about her experience as well.
Thank you so much for the opportunity for us to open the space. So what always is interesting for me when I'm holding circles or women's, what is the astrological map at the moment? What is the fingerprint of God at the moment? That was really interesting. And there was a lot of things happening with Lilith and many things. It was really magical. Then another thing was about the coconut, why it was so beautiful that you had made the coconuts, usually for the
For the
drinking the
gifts.
cacao.
Yeah.
Yeah, because according to astrosophy that I study, and it's kind of my golden compass, coconut is the offering of Bali. So we were really happy to have that with the 4 directions in the circle. And then I also looked at the circle and the people where they were. Where were the astrological signs? Also the mystical signs, like where were the dragons? Where was Pegasus? Pegasus is of Bali, actually, the ascension, the coconut. And then I felt so beautiful because coconut, we did trituration at school 8 years ago, I think, of exactly the same, not actually this coconut, but some of it was from Declan Hammond and some was from my shiatsu teacher from Trinidad and Tobago. It's all about incarnating. And because unleashing homeopathy was a new way of doing homeopathy together as a collective. When we went into the constellation, which Danica is going to talk about, and so on, we all felt, I think, the coconut with so much oxytocin, and with the fact that we actually all called ourselves present and incarnated in a completely new awareness and consciousness, and met from the heart, from the oxytocin state. So it was so important that it was coconut that we did, coconut together with cacao that we did. And then, of course, when my lecture was the shamanistic remedies of the Arctic, which I can talk about a little bit later, I was immediately, when I came into Bali, I was like, we need to do a remedy here. And the dragon was happening and so on. But then I was like, immediately the Lotus started to talk to me. And I was really happy that we happened to find the Lotus from Sacred Manku. Thank you, Angelica Lemke, for that. And that we were able to do a constellation Bali Lotus that actually I've used with quite a few clients already. I really love that when you make a remedy and you take it into practice immediately. That's the way I do homeopathy. And that's how it becomes also very ceremonial, because you know the essence and then you can share the essence with the world. Yeah, that's how I feel about the seminar. I'm still high from it.
Do you want to go for it, Danica?
I do, but before I do, I need to actually grab my coconut bowl, which is
Yay! I was going to ask if one of you have got it close by. Mine's inside the house.
I somehow ended up with 3 of them in my suitcase.
Amazing!
So when I got home and I spoke to Vivian just to say thanks for the cacao and everything, she's actually had a procedure yesterday, and so I'll go up and see her when she's on the mend and bring her one of the cacao bowls, Eugenie. Yeah, as an offering to say thank you. So yeah.
So special.
Look at them.
So beautiful. Can you hold a little bit closer as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So this and the love and the detail, and it was such an amazing thing to see how you'd have them engraved so beautiful. Even our name badges beautifully engraved. Mine sits on the windowsill now and has my angel cards in it. But this was basically, we were invited in the cacao ceremony to come and drink our cacao from these bowls. I don't even know where to begin about Bali. I'm just going to go back to the beginning and say Eugenie and Sarah and Marcus and Ren, just what an incredible event you created. It wasn't beyond an event. It was a true experience. And it was so rich in love and connection and learning and expansion and transformation and deep journeying together. So being out under the banyan tree, I'm completely in love with this banyan tree. So in Ubud, the capital of Bali, there are only 2 banyan trees. And the banyan tree, to me, it's such a beautiful tree. And it was said to be the tree that Buddha sat under for 7 days to achieve enlightenment. And so it's got this incredible vibration of expanding into that light. And it literally feels like that's what we did. The venue was incredible. The cacao ceremony it felt like being at a giant slumber party, because there was a moment when all of us were lying out on the deck underneath the banyan tree, receiving this incredible experience, having drunk the cacao, having been guided through such an incredible journey and ceremony by Janey and Reeta. And it just felt like we were lying in a giant slumber party with our best mates, like you used to do when you were teenagers. And that's how it felt to me. Like, here I was with all these homeopaths. I'd never met in person any of you. And yet here we were all together. We've known each other for lifetimes, which of course we have, and through time, and with all these other homeopaths that I'd never met in person, and yet felt completely connected with every single one. And to start our journey like that, to feel like that at the beginning of our journey, it really, to me, it was a real celebration of a coming together that feels like it's much bigger than any of us individually, that it's like it was meant to be. It was so incredible. And that opening ceremony, there was an amazing moment just before the ceremony, actually, where Declan Hammond and Lizzie Martinez were standing by the big pot of cacao. And I'd not met either of them before. And I went over and I was like, oh, is that the stirring of the cacao? And they said, yes. And I said, do you think you'd mind if I also have a little stir? And then I had my first moment with Declan Hammond, which it was so incredible to meet him and Lizzie and just everybody. And that ceremony, it went so deep, and it was perfect for what we stepped into, because we went so deep in our journey in Bali in really beautiful, profound ways. There was a joke about people crying. I think just everybody, most people cried at some point, it seemed, in the course of the journey, because it was about unleashing homeopathy, and that required and invited a huge and profound healing journey for us as individuals, but also for us as a collective. And that, to me, actually was what all of the work, all of the sessions, everything that everybody did was a part of. To do shall I go into the constellation? Yeah, to facilitate the constellation, which we did on the first afternoon after Sarah had done a beautiful session. And there was it was really beautiful, actually, to sit. Everybody was sitting in chairs in a circle on the decking with the banyan tree there with us. And I knew before we began, Eugenie had asked me many months before, would I facilitate a constellation? Because we had done a constellation online, just a small group of us, facilitating Hahnemann, and some months before. And she was like, oh, I wonder if this would be really good to do at the conference. And when it's really interesting facilitating constellations, because like usually I do it with the essences to represent, and obviously I do it with people as well. But there was a really interesting moment where I was thinking about how much do I structure or plan this? Because the thing with constellations is it's not about you as a facilitator, it's about the field. It's about stepping into a field and saying, what does the field want us to understand? What does it want us to know? And sometimes we go into constellations and we know very specifically what it is we would like to have represented in that constellation. And a constellation, for someone who hasn't seen or experienced one before, it's literally creating a map that describes a situation. And you call in different people to represent people connected to that situation or aspects of that situation. And what's incredible is that when you're called to represent, you have no idea sometimes who that person is or what it is you're representing. Always the degree of accuracy is incredible. Like, you immediately start to feel and think like the person that you're representing or the aspect you're representing. And the one thing I felt beforehand, I was like, how much structure do I go in with? And the one thing I felt really clear on was that we needed to have the essence of homeopathic medicine represented, because that's of course why we were there, and Reeta represent. I knew Reeta was to represent Reeta with all her bubbly, light, incredible ethereal energy. I just was like, that, that really speaks to me. So I knew Reeta would represent the essence of homeopathic medicine. And then we set up a constellation with 4 other representations of the 4 big masters, Hahnemann, Kent, Herring, and Compton Burnett. And I knew Daniel Burge shares his birthday with Samuel Hahnemann, and so I knew it would be Daniel to represent Dr. Hahnemann, but I didn't know who else to call in until I was there with everybody. But the one thing I did know was that because we've all got such strong associations with each of the teachers, we all have the potential to really project and to say, to put our projections into any one of those that we might represent. So it felt really important to do a blind constellation where the people called in to represent didn't know who they were representing. So what I did was I wrote on pieces of paper and put the names of who each person was representing on their backs. So I pinned the name on the backs of each person. and told each person that they weren't. So yeah, there we go. You can just see some of the, there you go, Ren there representing science.
For anyone on Rumble, I'm just screen sharing some of the photos for you. I'll just randomly cycle them through as you're talking.
So I basically had the four masters standing facing each other in a square almost, or a circle, and each of them had the name of who they were representing on their backs, but I told them that they couldn't turn their backs to each other at any point, that they had to stay facing each other, because I knew that if one of them turned around and everyone, the other representatives, saw that person was representing one of the masters, I figured they'd work out then that they were also representing one of the masters. So I wanted to keep it truly blind. But what I did is, once I'd set everyone up and pinned who they were representing on their backs, I then got everyone up and invited everyone to just walk, who was sitting in the circle, to just walk around so they could see who was representing who in the constellation. And it was absolutely incredible. The constellation itself focused on Dr. Hahnemann mainly. And what was really interesting to see was the journey that the constellation went in terms of his being in his head all the time and having lost a connection with his joy through a lot of his life. And that felt very deeply and profoundly healing and transformative, to be part of bearing witness to what unfolded in this incredible journey of him being reconnected to his joy. And I know Reeta has this massive connection with Melanie Hahnemann, and clearly her energy, but also his connection with his inner child. And it was difficult to know which of the two it was there, but that connection with his inner joy coming back felt really important, not just for him, but of course that's reflected for all of us in homeopathy. There was this incredible moment at the end where we were bringing in the feminine, and just as we were bringing in the feminine, literally this glass just shattered and all this water went everywhere, all across the decking. It was amazing how it was just an explosion, wasn't it? Which was incredible to see. But also what was really amazing was to see at the end of the constellation, there was this beautiful movement of everybody just wanting to come and gather around Hahnemann and to be part of really honoring who he is and who he was and the gift that he has been and is to all of us. It was quite incredible, and everyone joined this incredible, what became this group hug around Hahnemann. There was a real expression of love and healing and gratitude. But the other thing that came from it, and this is where we then moved on in the constellations, which I just thought was incredible, was seeing the role of Kent. And this was so beautifully represented by Declan Hammond, who was just incredible in it. And we got to see how much Kent just didn't feel like he was a part of everything else that was going on. We could see and feel his disdain and his sense of just the oddness of everything that was going on around him, that he didn't feel a part of, that he didn't belong, and his sense of uprightness and almost this sense of bitterness really in there too. And to really see that, and that for me was probably, it was amazing watching the whole constellation, but for me that was the biggest aha moment, because I was watching that and thinking, I can actually see the schism. I can see the schism in homeopathy. And we know the stories of how, for those of us who practice homeopathy, Dr. Hahnemann wrote 6 editions, or he published 5 editions, and then had taken the 5th edition and edited it, and basically was preparing his 6th edition, had written to his publishers to say that he'd had this 6th edition, and then died. And homeopaths who knew that he had been working on it then approached Melanie Hahnemann, his wife, and asked if it could be published, and she didn't feel ready to let that go at that time. And it wasn't for another 79 years before it was actually seen by the world. So there was this huge gap in time between what we had come to understand of Hahnemann's teachings in the 5th edition to what was then published in the 6th edition, eventually when it was published. And Kent was this incredible homeopath and massive contributions he's made to homeopathy in America, who had only got this 5th edition. He never got to see the 6th edition, so was working off the 5th edition. And there was so much more in the 6th edition than there was in the 5th edition. And Kent had this very he was very classical in his approach, And that we really see in how he practiced. And people who, you know, homeopaths, of course, every type of homeopathy is valid and important in the world. But there's this kind of, you can really see how there were people who learned according to the 5th edition, learned according to Kent's teachings. And then there are these others who learned because there was this 6th edition. And I really got to see that split. And one of the things that I was most fascinated by was seeing how and hearing how he had been conceived out of incest. His mother and father were brother and sister, and they were 12 and 15, according to the history of homeopathy that Denise Strages talks about and teaches. And so there was this he was very puritanical. He was a Baptist and had this very puritanical approach. And he had that approach, including in his practice. And we really got to see that in the constellation. And so I really got to see his pain. I was looking at him in that constellation on the decking and just thinking, oh my God, I can really see and feel his pain. And it almost felt to me like his very puritanical Baptist approach felt like it was almost like he was using homeopathy to try to purify himself. And the need for purity felt so important because of all he had grown through in terms of his upbringing and how he'd been brought into the world, which would have brought, of course, huge shame to him and his family at that time because of their background. So yeah, so there was this kind of, we could see the pain. And then there were another couple of spontaneous constellations that came off a result of that during the conference itself that were incredible, because for me it then became important to look at how do we heal Kent, because if we can bring healing to Kent and help him find his way to peace, then I wonder how that could be reflected through the whole of the homeopathic profession. And then there were a couple of amazing spontaneous constellations. One was a group with Manku, the shamanic healer, and Angelica had brought these 4 lotus flowers that we had of the 4 different lotus colors, the red, the black, the white, and the yellow. I got that right. Yes, red, black, white, and yellow, yes. And she'd had these delivered by this incredible spiritual teacher, Manku, and his wife. And as they arrived with these lotus flowers, then there was this incredible moment between Declan, who'd represented Kent, and Manku, who seemed to suddenly be representing Hahnemann. And there was this incredible moment of exchange, of seeing a master, seeing the student, and the student seeing the master, in terms of Hahnemann and Kent, in this huge healing between. Nothing was spoken, but we all felt this incredible healing just in their gaze and in their connection with each other. And then later I ended up constellating unintentionally, stepped into experiencing what it must have been like for Kent as a small child, having been brought into the world under the circumstances he was brought in, and the huge shame he was made to feel because of it. So from that, I've become really interested in Kent, like super interested in Kent in ways I hadn't quite connected with prior to Bali. And so we're doing at the Golden Spiral School of Homeopathy, in our weekend in November, we're going to be doing a day of constellating. And we're going to, on the Saturday of the weekend, on the 23rd of November. And I'm absolutely thrilled to bits that Janey and Reeta are going to join us. Daniel Burge and Declan Hammond are going to be there as well. And Ren's coming. It's just going to be absolutely incredible. And we're going to just take that journey further and see what that can bring. And for me, that's really important to do as a homeopath, because to me, it's the best history lesson we can have as homeopaths, because you literally see the living history. And we're going to start with that journey with Kent and his parents and just see where we go from there. There are going to be 3 constellations. I won't be surprised if Melanie comes in through the magic of Reeta and at some point in that journey in that day. And then the second day of that weekend, that's the Saturday, the 23rd of November, and then the Sunday, the 24th, Janey and Reeta will be teaching about the sacred feminine and working with the sacred feminine, using homeopathy, using remedies, but also what it means to truly be embodied in our sacred feminine. And Declan Hammond and Daniel Burge will be teaching about the sacred masculine as well, and remedies for the sacred masculine. So there's this real invitation, I think, to look at how we bring things together, how we bring healing. And the work that we're doing using constellations is such a wonderful way of doing that, of seeing what's the story, what's the history, what's gone on, and actually how do we bring transformation in a way that benefits all of us. Because how the field of homeopathy and the ways in which we wonderfully work together and the challenges we face are all a reflection of the issues and the challenges that our forefounders were going through. So if we can really step into experiencing those, as our homeopathic ancestors and bring transformation, then that has a ripple effect that benefits all of us in homeopathy world. And just seeing that in Bali was the greatest gift imaginable. What you've created has been mind-blowing, and it's just the beginning of an incredible adventure going forward, I think. So thank you.
It really should have been called Homeopaths Unleashed, hey? And hang on, Reeta and Janey, are you actually physically going to London for the Constellation?
Yes, we are.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
hard being in the Southern
I'm
Hemisphere.
so
in the
jealous.
activities.
That is so unfair. We're going to be FOMOing hardcore,
We
Sarah.
are. We are.
We
Well-
join us online because we will be streaming online, but I do want to say, just come over.
We could do a Rebel special with the three of us together and you two over there.
No, that would just be rubbing it in our faces.
It would.
Yeah. Is it the
Well-
24th of October or November?
November. 23rd and 24th of November, that weekend.
Team.
So exciting. Please come. Please.
If only.
I can't wait to just physically be with Janey and Reeta and Daniel and Declan again.
Have you got a spare room at your place, Danica?
Well, I've always we're all staying in a teacher house, actually. House of the
Oh.
and we're all
There is room for both of you, I think. So just
Oh,
get your
my
tickets.
Yeah.
Just get your
And we're
ticket.
out, so you can just
Wow.
pick you up.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing.
Perth, not that far from London.
Oh my gosh.
Only
I'm
24 hours on the plane.
It's one working day.
Yeah.
Come and
Got
do-
remedies, jet
I'll send you
lag.
my playlist. How about that?
I can listen to this episode on the way there. Danica, I'm just really glad that you're carrying on this constellation work because I do feel it's really important. And yeah, I am really new to constellations. I've only done maybe 4 or so, and 3 of them were with you. So I'm still learning, but it's an area that I really want to explore a lot more. Now I've just jumped in here because we're actually trying to be like very ordered here because all of us are we love talking, all of us. And so we're trying to be all organized and in the chat box saying who goes next. And then I just jumped in here like I usually do and just stuffed up our whole system. So now I'm saying who was talking next. Is it you, Sarah?
It could be Reeta or I.
Just go.
Yeah, I was wanting to talk about when you're talking about purifying Kent and how then that kind of moved into the Lotus. And I feel like Reeta and I had the thought at the same time because the Lotus really purified so much. And actually we did another proving of the Lotus today in the School of Intuitive Homeopathy. And again, it was like a lot of those purifying themes coming through, very similar to the proving that we did in Bali, which was the proving of the Lotus that we did in Bali was so spontaneous and so feminine. In fact, it's the most feminine proving that I've ever done. And it just flowed to the point, like we didn't want to actually triturate and crush the flowers because they were just so beautiful. We just couldn't do it. So as they were left in the bowl, they were opened up and left in the bowl and holy water added, and we all sat with the bowl. I felt very possessive of the bowl, actually, a number of times, most of the time during that proving. I was very like, give me back that bowl. And I feel like it really transformed. It brought this, as the Lotus does, there's this playful, innocent naivety that comes with it. And there was a point where there's a group of women on the floor stroking each other and giggling and playing, and this real kind of lovely little nymph, childlike, naive, lovely little scene. Meanwhile, I was over in the corner in labor, feeling like I was going to give birth. And that kind of circled through to this almost like temple-like space where Reeta was anointing us with the holy water using one of the lotuses, which was really beautiful. Like everyone got anointed and there were so many hums and murmurings and all of this lovely thing to the point. And then the other side, the dark side, came out of this, the flip side, which we often see that polarity, especially in the plants. And that was of sexual abuse and working almost like in a temple space or in a high institution space where these things get abused. Then this is turned over, and that really came around. And so over the 4 hours that we did the proving, we came out the other side wiser, like we've been through. We weren't still in that childlike innocent state. We'd moved through all of these things and we had to equalize them. And at the end, I pulled one of the beautiful cards that Janey had laid out at the start as we did this proving in ceremony space. And it was true love. And to me, that this was like, that really represented that what you get to in the end, that was the completion of the journey to come back to true love that has grown and known and been with all of these things, but to really come back into the heart. And any of our patients can be in any moment of that journey of the lotus. We can give that remedy for anyone in any part. But when you see the whole journey like that, you really know the medicine and the history and maybe where somebody sits in that whole journey. But it was so important, I think, to do this in Bali because it felt really relevant to Kent, who came from these parents who were siblings. And in a way that was very, of course, it's just very strange in what we, well, not strange, but maybe it was more common back then, I don't know. And then he was grown and he, in his personality that we saw in the constellation, he was so stiff and rigid and this is the way. Like he was so in this kind of stuck masculine. He was just like, no, it's this way. It's my way. What are you all doing? Kind of space. So it was these things, like it was just so amazing that all of these things, especially once you create the sacred container, which the opening ceremony did do, I have to say, it did create that container where there were all of these possibilities that came up. And I saw over the 3 days of the conference, all of these it's almost like these little other seeds popping up, other seeds growing and starting to develop. And I saw practitioners who'd only been practicing for 2 years just really have their mind blown and start to be like, wow, this is what it could be, and really find their resonance with that too. And it felt like there was all of this movement and all of this sudden like explosion into where can we take this now that we've been released? Where can we take homeopathy now? How can I expand into this new space? Which was just super exciting to witness and see, and at times overwhelming too, right? I felt like I had many kind of purifications and initiations over that 3 days. Sometimes it was a lot, but on the other side of that, it's always a particularly big kind of leap into the next level of consciousness, really. And I do have to say, I did my presentation straight after the cacao ceremony and the opening ceremony, which Eugenie said to me, yes, you've got the hardest job of the conference. And I didn't think about that at the time. But I don't know, I guess I was so high on that opening ceremony and on the cacao that I don't even know what I said in that presentation. I know I followed my slides, but it was just all coming out and expanding into where we were all at. So that was it felt really connecting and really special to drift in. And in fact, we've also said, Marcus, Ren, Eugenie and I also said that the conference wasn't about a particular speaker or just about the speakers. It was so much also about the web that was being woven between everybody and within and without, but in our space. It was just the perfect weaving of all of those things. And hopefully we can achieve that again next year, but I feel like we can, and I feel like it'll just also explode and have new people, and every year it'll bring something else, something exciting, something really big. Amen.
Amen. Actually, I was just going to say the same things about the lotus, but it was interesting because when a new remedy comes up, it's just that it pops on. So the lotus, it was actually that I wanted to do a remedy of the purple lotus, of the magenta lotus, which was one of the 4. And Janey and I, we were looking for the lotus. We're like, it's going to come up somewhere. We went to the sacred water temple. It wasn't there. And then luckily, Angelica Lemke, when I said to her that I really want to do the lotus here, actually, and then she's like, I know where to get it. And then Manku came in. We didn't know that he'd be Hahnemann. And actually, I have a really strong feeling that we made the remedy for Kent, that the lotus, because I remember a time that Danica said that let's go and constellate Kent. And I was like, I'm coming, but I need to meet Manku and get the lotuses. And suddenly we are all in the same place and the constellation happens from there. And everything you talk about Kent's history is just so Lotus. This is the beauty of homeopathy. This is the synchronicity. And did we know that we are triturating in a really constellative new way, Lotus, when we took our tickets, when we bought our tickets? No. And it just wanted to come. And Lotus really symbolizes Bali as well. So, I mean, that we went to Bali under the banyan tree, had a constellation remedy, had it done as a water remedy, actually. Because we just kept on adding the holy water from the water temple. The sacred feminine is so much in the source, in the water, and that remedy. I attended a birth and I already used it there. And because the lotus, the inside of the lotus is so delicate, and for the cervix to open, and because it was a C9, that lady for the first time opened so beautifully with the lotus. And that's exactly what we felt. You know, some people are like, I'm going to birth. I feel my uterus. I feel my cervix. It's opening. And, you know, all the other things happening there. And the beautiful picture, I don't know if we can find it, but that like looking like a picture from actually Hahnemann's time. So I think there's like multiple layers that happen there. And it would be so beautiful to continue with the constellations and whatever is going to come out of there. And one more thing that I really felt, because the 6th edition was not shown to the world for a really long time. I've heard this story before, that Mary Magdalene's Gospels were hidden as well.
Mm.
I think there is something that really interests me over here. And I think we've already researched it a little bit. And I think it's really important to bring the female masters, like Melanie, for example, into the homeopathic field, because it's often like we talk about the male. And what I didn't understand before was that actually medicine sees Melanie Hahnemann as the first doctor, at least in Europe. So they do appreciate her. I think we need to bring her. We need to bring her into the homeopathic field.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Amen.
There's something well incredible about Bali, which is that it sits. I don't know how many of you know about, I know everyone here will, but for those listening, there are these what are called dragon ley lines that run around the earth. There are 2 of them, and they basically wind around each other, almost like the DNA going around the world, and they run through some of the chakra centers of the earth. And there are 2 points on the earth at which they cross, and one's a female line, one's a male line, and they both cross over Bali. So there's this integration of the masculine feminine, this healing of the masculine feminine that Bali truly represents. And there's the map just there. Yeah, really amazing.
Can I just add something as well? Because I've continued to take the Lotus since we left Bali on my journey home to New Zealand. And what I found really special about it as well is that Bali has not been corrupted by the patriarchy. It's never been colonialized. So there's this real pure essence in Bali that's also reflected in the purity and the innocence of the lotus. And I think it was really quite synchronistic that we ended up in Bali, and that is reflected in the quality and the healing that's taken place there, because it's such an island of pure energy. And Danica just shared there about the dragon lines or the ley lines. It's a place that I've never been to before, and when I got there I was like, how have I never been here? And one thing that we all know as homeopaths is that a lot of the things that we do are often carried with divine timing, and not just divine timing in this respect for the lotus proving to be done, but divine alignment as well. And I've also used it on a few clients since I came back to Ireland and had really incredible results too. It's like at the moment in Ireland and also in New Zealand, there is a huge uprising and push against patriarchy and this energy of reclamation of sovereignty taking place as the world starts to wake up from the slumber and the spell that we've all been under. These remedies are coming forward to help everybody evolve, to help our consciousness to expand, and to help all those wounds and those traumas to be healed. So I really found really deeply this remedy to be so profound. And one of the things that also took place during the actual proving was, Danica, you fell asleep. Do you remember? And I think for any students watching this, when you're triturating or doing a proving and you fall asleep, it becomes curative. The same thing happened to me when we did the Maria Magdalena trituration on C3. I was grinding the pestle and mortar and I fell asleep doing it. And I also feel like these two remedies are really interwoven. And when Reeta and I teach in November, two of the remedies we'll be doing will be the Bali Lotus and the Maria Magdalena frequency that we made in France last year on the solstice. So, yeah, just circling back to my point is that as the world starts to go through this huge awakening and transition from Piscean age into Aquarius age, these remedies that are coming through now are hugely important to support us through that transition. And I think we're just on the cusp of realizing how important the Bali Lotus is going to be for many of us. Yeah. Oh, look at that. Yes, I could not help myself. So Danica had laid down and I was sitting watching her and I was like, I need to stroke her hair. I really badly need to stroke her hair. I've just got to sit on the floor and stroke her hair. And as I was doing that, Lizzie then said, Janey, I need to lean on your back. And this is a photo of the three of us. And eventually other people also joined us. And it was like we were transported to some ancient temples in Egypt. And there was a real sensual energy there. There was nothing sexual about this at all. It was the sisterhood. There was deep healing taking place. We were just feeling so held and supported and nourished and healed. And there was some kind of unfolding taking place, just in the same way that the lotus had been opened up very gently in the bowl. And yeah, it was incredibly potent.
Such a beautiful photo, that one. I quickly just want to add in there that I think Danica mentioned that Ubud is the capital city of Bali, but it's actually Denpasar. And Bali has actually been colonized by the Dutch, which was quite handy for me because quite a lot of the words that they use are actually Dutch. So I understood a few of them. So for example, when you go for your lovely buffet in the morning and there's pisang, that is banana. And we use the same word that they do in Balinese, which is pisang. We also say pisang in Africa. So there's quite a few Dutch words that they use. That's, yeah, it's the same. So we often, like with our beautiful driver, Agung, there's lots of words because we would sometimes talk, speaking Afrikaans, and he would understand some of the words and he would say some words. And even reading the signs, like a pharmacy is, we say apteek and they say apotheek. And so there's which is very different to the English, pharmacy versus apteek. So lots of words. And so they were colonized by the Dutch there for a bit. But I don't know.
Oh, great for that. And actually, to add, the monk his son, after we went for the water ceremony, told us that Ubud actually means medicine.
Oh, wow.
Yes, yeah, and that's why it's such a sacred place, and that there's many retreat centers there and different healing modalities, and that it's like a mecca for people to come to receive healing. Yeah.
Wow, you really represent that, Janey, in that constellation. And I don't know if I've said this to you actually, that felt so beautiful. I really felt that when you were stroking my head. Like I really felt the profundity of that and the healing. And yeah, you were really representing, Sarah was probably going to say something about that, but you were really representing such incredible healing.
Yeah, I just wrote in our chat group that Janey was like the great mother in the trituration. She knew where to go, who needed it, at what time, and she was there. I know you were doing something to me at some point, massaging me or something when there was a lot kind of moving through. It was, yeah, you were the great mother.
Actually, Declan was sitting there for a while, and that representation of Kent was really strong. I felt the wounded Kent, and I was keeping an eye on him because I knew at some point we were going to have to help his energy earth or shift or rebalance in some way. And after I'd worked on you, or I don't know, it was just very natural, and wouldn't even say it was working. I was just being with you, and then was drawn to Declan, and Reeta then came over, and then Danica was lying at his feet, and Angelica was sitting at his feet, and Ren was there as well. And this is when Lizzie actually took the photo, and hopefully Eugenie can share it. It looks like something out of the Renaissance or even further back in time to something that almost Declan is godlike and his feet are being bathed. We're standing behind him as the divine feminine, and he suddenly starts to personify the healed masculine and the sacred masculine. And there's just the whole photo is like a biblical scene, really, isn't it? Just amazing. So thanks to Lizzie for capturing that, because it really does hold the essence of the Bali lotus. Yeah.
And that full circle coming back to the true love and the equalizing almost the masculine and the feminine in that moment. It was really, yeah, that photo is brilliant. I also saw Declan as Zeus in that photo. I saw many things, but I saw him, but being supported by these strong women around him. And I wanted to say about the constellation too, that Danica called me in to be the unspoken, not in the with the Lotus, but with the constellation that we did in the afternoon. And Reeta saw me as Melanie, and I felt myself as the inner child, but something that what I felt like I really represented was some kind of true love. And I can remember Daniel representing Hahnemann, like keeping on looking back at me, at almost like he'd lost that connection, but then he came back to it. And that was just so incredible. But also just towards the end, when he and I came together and everyone ended up standing around us, and I had my hands on his shoulders. I can't even remember why, but I just felt called to put my hand over his heart. And when I did, I just felt him soften, like he just softened so much into that. And he was just like, oh, like this kind of blissful state, like that it was just so beautiful. And again, that kind of masculine, feminine, like meeting each other, which was just, it was just so powerful. I was just so blown away to be part of that experience, because it was really like so healing. And as a woman, as the woman representing the unspoken / Melanie / inner child as well, I felt really powerful in that space with him, and almost like I again really stepped towards, oh yeah, that's right, the divine feminine here, and what that divine feminine does with the masculine, how we have this role of holding space, of knowing, of reconnecting men to what, to themselves even. And that came through so strongly for me. And I just saw that in Daniel as well, which was just, it was just so incredibly moving, wasn't it? And I know you could just see everyone on the edges as well, were just riveted of what's going to play out here. Just amazing.
And was there a moment in that, Sarah, because it felt like you've just described that so beautifully as true love, and it was so beautiful watching that journey of you and Daniel, just incredible. And yet all I could feel was this joy. Like it just felt like in that true love, it was almost like this joy had burst forth that had been forgotten or suppressed or squashed in some way. And it was that joy that really stayed with me, I think. I don't know if that reflects experience, but
yeah, when I stepped into that and I felt this, I can't remember what I felt first, but I do remember I had the scream that came forward, and then after the scream, soon after, there was tears. Like it's just this complete sadness. And then after that, I almost felt like this quite strong and quite like towards Daniel / Hahnemann, you need to look at me, you need to stay with me, this is what you need. You're becoming fragmented over there with all of these things at you, but you need to be connected to this feminine child, whatever it was. And that just felt so clear to me that he needed to come back to that. And I think it felt clear to him as well in the end, like that was where he needed to be too.
And that for me, that's what I love about constellations, because one of the things about constellations have been born out of doing work on trauma and looking at where trauma has got stuck in the field. We know that we inherit susceptibility to disease. We've known that for eons, but we're only just starting to see the scientific evidence that supports what we've understood for a long time as well, which is that trauma is also inherited. And when we look back, our ancestors will have been through, all of us have got ancestors who've had horrible histories on some level. There are terrible things that have happened through history. And sometimes when we go through trauma, if it's too much for us to process at that time, we will suppress it, not deal with it. And then if we don't deal with it, that vibration, that energy, that experience, it stays and then gets carried down. And one of the things that I love about constellations is when you see where something's got stuck in the system. So that there's a repeating issue or there's a challenge that keeps being experienced. It's because there's something that got stuck in the story and the history of that collective or that family or that profession. It applies to any collective, any system. And to see that moment when there's an energy release, and it takes a lot of bravery in a constellation for someone to do that piece, which you did so beautifully, Sarah. You screamed. There was a release of that stuckness. The Hahnemann hadn't been able to connect with his joy that got completely suppressed. And what constellations do is like homeopathy. They unsuppress the vital force, the energy, the dynamic flow of life. And that was a really brave thing, and I was delighted to see that you did that, because not everybody, when they represent, can do that. I go into constellations where people wail because an ancestor 3 generations ago didn't wail, you know, the loss of someone significant or a trauma they went through, and so that energy's got stuck and it needs releasing. So it was so incredible you did that.
Can I just say, though, if I had my time again, I think I would have made that scream a little more guttural. I think it was a little bit more of a, than a. Someone said to me afterwards that was a bit of a pathetic scream, and I was like, I know, I really wanted to bring some guts into it, but that's how it came.
And it's worth just mentioning that Danica brought in science at one stage as well, also blind. So Ren was representing science. And it was very interesting that they just wanted to be buddies, like Hahnemann and science. I think they actually, I can't remember the exact words that was said, but there was definitely an affinity there between the two.
Yeah, there was no tension where we assumed that there is so much tension, but remembering that Hahnemann was a scientist and a doctor, and it's so interesting that came up. It was such a good idea to bring that in, actually, I think.
And true science is about openness, curiosity, exploring what's possible. We don't know the answers. That's the whole point of science. It's to say what's possible next, rather than to go, no, this isn't possible, this is an impossibility. Well, we live in a universe where everything's possible. So true science would be open to homeopathy and would be curious about homeopathy. And actually, that is what we saw in the constellation, which was beautiful.
Reeta, do you want to say?
Actually, to the constellation, it was interesting thinking about science and Hahnemann were so good friends, because the essence of homeopathy and Hahnemann in the beginning were against, or the essence felt that Hahnemann needs to say sorry about something. And I felt like it was the beginning of his career as a doctor, changing into, as the constellation went forward, that he was very like arrogant in the beginning and very much in the masculine, and then with everything unfolding, it was so beautiful that he became much softer. And as his career went, it was like the whole of Hahnemann's life, actually, pretty much over there in the 2-3 hours or that we did under the hot sun. But what I wanted to really say about the Lotus, what I felt anointing people, that it was really about sacred sexuality. Yes, there was that side of innocence and purity, but there definitely was lust, and there was sacred sexuality, and there was like enjoyment, and like how sexuality is so pure, and how everybody has the right to enjoyment, all the oxytocin and the feeling, and you know how the skin is so wants to be touched, and the connection between people, and reclaiming your sacred sexuality. Because we have 4 men over there, I think, 3 men. And then we were all together 20, so maybe 16 women. And it was somehow like it was a very safe space for everybody to express and how things really should be. And then the dark side was when things are not like that. And always when we do approving, we look at synchronicity in the world. Well, Hollywood, Lotus is happening. I don't know. I think we unleash something very beautiful that can heal collectively. And one beautiful thing that I think we'll talk about in Danica school is the sacred sexuality with the sacred masculine and the feminine. And this was like an initiation to that.
And we have decided we're doing it again next year in August. But I'm a little bit worried now that we've sold it to everyone, because there's probably not going to be any tickets, because all of us are bringing like all of our friends. And we're like, I don't know if there's going to be any public sale of tickets. And so we are like chatting about how do we get around that. And maybe there's some of the recordings that will be available afterwards. But it's just that the venue it can only really take about 80 people in that room. So we can't really have any more. And so it's a tricky one, but maybe there are other healers, and I don't know, not just homeopaths, but like healers who can create this sort of space for healers to be healed. And that is the thing that actually all of us took away. It wasn't a conference, it was actually more like a healing retreat for all of us. And I know I had very deep healing and I cried so much. And I am not that person. You go to events and there's people like crying, and I'll be sitting there going, oh, such dramas. And then I was the one like bawling my eyes out the entire conference retreat. And so it was incredibly healing for me. I really loved it so much. Such deep healing, such deep medicine. And I just remember like meeting all of you in person. I got to meet Sarah Valentini a year ago in Brisbane, but the Janey and Reeta and dinner. So I remember meeting you and I was literally shaking. I was so happy, literally shaking. And it was just the most surreal, incredible thing to get to hug you in person. It was so amazing. And it's lovely to get to continue this conversation as well. And we need to hopefully have lots more Rebels chats. So we need to set up it's so hard finding time with all of us, but we need to do this more often because it's so lovely. And I think our listeners enjoy coming along on this ride. We've had a few of them message and say it's so nice. They just feel like they're hanging out with us. And that was what we're trying to create here, just making others around the world feel connected as well, and hanging out in their ear holes. And hopefully they'll learn something along the way, and hopefully they'll feel inspired along the way and take the inspiration from hopefully what we've created here today and go out in the world and do that in everywhere, because there's only a handful of us and we can only fit so many people at the retreat, but you can create the same magic wherever you go. And yeah, really unleash homeopathy. I can probably say this because Hillary did say it on her on her Facebook page. I'm sure I can say it, but the cherry on the cake for me was when my idol Hillary Dorian, who's got 40 years of experience and been to lots of conferences around the world several times, to me and on her Facebook page said it was the best conference she'd ever gone to. I'm like, job's done. Anyway, I just wanted to show you the drum that I managed to bring back from Bali. It is so beautiful, and I use it every day with my donkeys. And I have to say thank you to Janey, because she was playing this drum at the ceremony. And it just, when you were doing the cacao ceremony, Mama Cacao just said to me, you got to take that drum home. And the first thing, because funny enough, when my mum passed in May, I went over in April just before she passed, I tried to bring back 2 little drums from South Africa, and actually customs took my drums off me. And in that ceremony, I just heard my mum's voice saying, Eugenie, just take the drum. I will sort it out for you. Don't worry. Because I was like, oh, no, I'm going to buy this drum and I'm not going to get it through customs, because Australia and New Zealand are so fussy at customs. So as luck would have it, I go through customs and there's this lady, and when you see like their faces and you go, oh, that one looks pretty nice. And oh, that one looks like a hard ass. And I got the hard ass one. And she was like checking this drum. She's, no, you can't. And then of course, just on one side, she found this little spider web, and she's, oh no, there's bugs. And then I was like, oh no, we've sprayed it, and it should be all fine. And I just saw my mum behind her going, don't worry, deep breaths. And then it was this moment where I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to go either way. Is she going to take my drum? Is she not? And then she's okay. And then she gave it to me, and I walked through, and I was like, oh my goodness. So I've got this little piece of Bali here with me, and I drum my donkeys most day, and they love it. And George, one of the donkeys, will literally take the drum with his head and move it in close to his chest. He'll physically take the drum and make me drum it on his chest. He loves it. And the vibration of it is so incredible. So Janey, I just have to say thank you so much. And yeah, even the way that we got those drums, hey, we had a lovely kudos to Zhenya, which actually means Eugene, in Bali. He's got a great shop in Ubud called Rhythm and Light, so shout out to him. But he actually loaned us this drum free of charge for the ceremony, and it was about 8:30 p.m. and I think Janey said to me, Eugenie, did you end up organizing a drum? And I'm like, oh shit, I did it. And we just raced, and he kept the shop open for us until 9 o'clock. We got there and the lights were out, and then somebody else goes, "Oh no, he's actually there." They went and called him. And so it was like 9:15 where he came out there and he's, "Yeah, just take this drum." And I'm like, Are you sure you want any money for it?" No, he's, "No, just take it, go use it in your ceremony." And so I had to buy it and bring it back with me. It was amazing. We've got so much more to chat about, ladies, but I wonder if we should maybe wrap it up. Should we go around the room and just do one final little thing that you want to share or whatever? Janey, do you want to go first?
Yeah, that drum. I remember when you brought it into the restaurant and I was like, oh, we'll just have a little sound off here with it. And it was like, thank you so much for organizing that, Eugenie. And it really, the drum is such an important piece, such an important tool for us as healers. And I'll speak more into that next time we meet, and just how much it activates and heals a lot. And you can tell by the way the donkeys respond. So I'll speak more into that in the next one, but a huge thank you to everybody today. And I hope if anyone's got any questions in regards to anything that we've spoken to, please reach out to us and we're happy to, come back to you with that. But yeah, we need to get a bigger venue. Maybe we could move into the yoga barn for a couple of things. I don't know, but just putting it out there, and we could then stay in the same place. But thanks everyone so much for tuning in. It's such a blessing to know you're all out there, and I'll wait till we meet again.
That was so beautiful with the drum, and I'm so happy your donkeys have it and that you have it over there. It was really meant to go that way. I once brought a big Ethiopian drum from Bahir Dar to Addis Ababa and from there to Helsinki. And my mom said, it's funny, it's my mom, "You will never take it to Finland. You'll never manage." And I said, "Watch me." And I have it here. So us and the moms, it's a church drum. But I wanted to say that I am so happy, and the shamanistic remedies of the Arctic are so happy because they are available with Eugenie at the moment. So you can have them also on that side of the world. And definitely you can also get them from me. And then we are writing a book about them. So I have a student translating it, and it will be many more remedies. But just bringing and honoring the indigenous people of Finland, Norway, and Sweden, the Sami people, that's one of the things. I think one of the things we talked about in Bali was also giving the voice to the indigenous people, and having remedies also help heal or return the power to the indigenous people. So I'm working with the Arctic at the moment, but all the indigenous people are, of course, connected to each other, and they all work with ceremony, with shamanism, and with sacred plants and so on. So I feel we have also unleashed something really beautiful in this direction, and I feel really honored to be a part of that and to share it. We're going to the dark. Enjoy, everybody, the Dia de los Muertos, and your bones, and letting go, and the metal element, and the time of the death. We are diving into the shadows, into Samhain, and just stay safe, and love you all.
So beautiful. Thank you, Reeta. Thank you, Janey. It's amazing how many I'm seeing all of these little bursts of inspiration come from so many people that attended the conference in Bali. And it just fills me with so much joy because our intention of unleashing homeopathy really did become unleashed. And it's like all of these little directions that it's going in, and how connected we all are. And Declan Hammond said that he's been a homeopath in the community for a long time, but he said, "I feel like I've finally found my tribe." And I think that when we sit with our tribe and we magnify the potential of that, and actually in my presentation, I talked about synchronicity in the field and creating that synchronicity in the field, so that once there is synchronicity and coherence, that light that is created shines brighter. It can shine brighter than the sun. And so we really did move that. And then I'm seeing all of these little solar bursts come around from everyone who attended. There was such a shared experience and a shared kind of opening, unleashing. And expansion. And this is super exciting. And for all of these beautiful women here, I feel such a connected sisterhood, even though we sit in different parts of the globe. And I actually said to you, Janey, I don't know if it was after we left Bali, but I was like, what absolute divine guidance you got to get us all together, because the synchronicity that I feel between all of you beautiful women is it just fills my heart so much. And this morning I actually pulled a card and it was about sacred sisterhood. And Janey was recently also talking about the sacred sisterhood. And this is something that I really feel with all of you. And I think that extends to a lot of the people that were in Bali as well, is this sacred sisterhood, which is just so warming and heartfelt. And even though we may be on opposite sides of the earth, it's almost like we're holding grid points out there. And that connection is just incredibly powerful and special. And there's so much more work to do that we're all going to be doing together, even though we are sitting at these different grid points across the earth. And so thank you all, and thank you to everyone that's listening. And whatever we do with Unleashing Homeopathy, we're going to continue to do that. We know that for sure. We have to keep unleashing because it was 70 very special people that got to attend, but there are many more homeopaths, and we do want to keep this movement growing so that everyone can get a little taste and experience of, oh yeah, this is where homeopathy is going. This is where we can go in the future. So thank you all so much.
I don't even know how to say anything other than just share the huge heart swell of incredible gratitude and love that I feel for all of you, and the sheer blessing that it is to do the work that we're here to do, which is to be in service to our beautiful Mama Gaia, to the beautiful planet that we're on, the beautiful humans and animals and plants and birds and all that we're here to be a part of. And I honestly couldn't be more grateful for being able to do this, walking alongside all of you and some of the other all of the other incredible people that are walking this journey with us. I just feel so blessed. And I pulled a card out of my coconut bowl and I got the word celebration, and that's how it feels every time I gather with all of you, every time I connect with any of you individually or as a group. And this applies again beyond this group, just all of us that are on this journey together. It just feels like a celebration. It feels like literally we are living an expression of the vital force of homeopathy through our connection with each other in all that we're doing together. And I just thank you, all of you, and thank you to everyone listening, and thank you to everyone who came to Bali. What an incredible adventure and journey of love and magic and wonderfulness we're on.
There's really nothing left to be said apart from thank you so much to all of you. And to anybody listening, any homeopath listening, if you haven't found your tribe yet, keep reaching out, because you might see all of us like chatting here and see the beautiful bond that's here, but that's taken time, and that's taken vulnerability, and that's taken work. And it's very easy to look at something like this from the outside and go, oh, but they have this or they have that or whatever. But all of us have got our own sister wounds and our own issues and our own everything else. And I just want to say, we're all the same. And if you're feeling lonely, reach out to homeopaths around until you've found the ones that you resonate with, because they are there, and it might take you a little bit of work, and you might need to search a little bit, and you might make a couple of mistakes along the way. I've done lots of those, but keep going because it's worth it, and your tribe is out there, and keep looking for them. And when you do, you're going to create amazing things together. Somebody, I think at the conference, actually said to me, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go long, then do it with a tribe. And I think that's really important. If you want to be doing this for the long term, get a tribe around you and you're going to go much further. So thank you, ladies, for being my tribe. And thank you for all the wisdom that you share. I always learn so much from all of you. And my heart just feels like it's expanded so much since I've had you ladies in my life. So thank you very much.
Can I add something there for anyone that wants really to embrace this frequency of the healed sisterhood? It's so important. The circle is a symbol of the feminine. Reeta and I have a online event coming up on the 11/11 about creating your sacred altar. And it's a 2-hour workshop where we will teach you about some of the wisdom that we both shared in Bali about creating your sacred space, learning to work with ceremony, and also honoring the feminine, the masculine, the elements, the direction. So if anybody's interested in that, head over to Sacred Source School, our page on Instagram, or we'll drop the link into the show notes. You're so welcome to come. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that's going to
Mm.
be amazing. And we can't wait to join you ladies and learn from you. I'm so excited about that. So 11/11, we'll see you there.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Lots of love to you
Thank
all.
you.
Welcome.